They called them files, but that word was too small. When the first boxes were opened, a clerk whispered, "This isn't paperwork. This is a map. A map of dinners and islands, of flights that never showed up on calendars, of phone calls made at 2:17 a.m. and never returned. At the center of it all was Jeffrey Epstein, a man who moved through rooms like he didn't belong to time. He was never the loudest, never the richest, never the most powerful. Yet somehow everyone seemed to orbit him. The files didn't scream. They murmured. A flight log here, an email there, a photograph where the background mattered more than the faces. And always the same question scribbled in margins by investigators who came and went. Why him? The house with too many doors. One folder was labeled residences. Inside, blueprints, security notes, visitor lists. The New York townhouse had more cameras than a casino and more doors than a courthouse. The island had guest cottages arranged like chess pieces, every path visible from the main house. Someone had written in pen, "Designed to observe, not to hide." That line was underlined twice. The files didn't explain it, but they hinted. Epstein didn't just collect people. He cataloged them. The names, they came later. Not in a list. Never that neat. Names drifted through emails like smoke. "Great dinner last night. Can you introduce me? He said you'd be interested." Some were famous, some were forgotten, some were powerful enough that their names were blacked out so aggressively the ink tore the page. And then there were the women, unnamed, reduced to initials, sometimes accidentally revealed by sloppy redactions. Survivors who had spent years being silent, only to find themselves exposed while others stayed hidden. One advocate circled a paragraph in red and wrote, "They're still protecting the wrong people." The woman who knew the schedule. Another folder bore a single name, Ghislaine Maxwell. Her notes were precise, times, preferences, travel arrangements. She didn't write like an accomplice, she wrote like a manager. In one memo, an investigator noted, "Epstein didn't run alone. He never did." The system deep inside the archive were internal memos from the Federal Bureau of Investigation and the Department of Justice. Drafts, revisions, decisions softened by time. Why a deal was made, why a charge was dropped, why a door stayed closed. No single memo explained it, but together they formed a shape, an outline of hesitation when money and influence entered the room. One line, buried in an email chain, stood out. "Proceed cautiously. Subject has significant connections, not innocence, not doubt, connections." The night the files went silent. Epstein died in a cell that had cameras but no footage. Guards who should have checked didn't. Paperwork that should have existed didn't. The files grew thicker after his death, not thinner, because death didn't end the story, it froze it mid-sentence, and frozen stories make people nervous. The release years later, when the government finally opened the vaults, the public expected fireworks. What they got instead was noise. Millions of pages dumped at once, names hidden, victims exposed, images too disturbing to show, yet too important to ignore. It felt less like transparency and more like a test. How long will you look before you get tired? What the files never say out loud. They never say, "Here is the client list. Here is the mastermind. Here is the moment we failed." But they don't need to. Because between the lines is something colder than a conspiracy. A system where exploitation survived, not because everyone agreed, but because enough people looked away.